I'm Michelle. This is my so-called handmade life. I have a blog by the same name, and that is my name on Instagram. On Ravelry, I am Mamatronic. If you haven't figured out by the whole handmade life, Ravelry references, this is a crafting podcast. I mostly knit, but I also crochet, and I have other little DIYs and home projects in here too. But mostly I'm just chatting with a friend about making. So my hope is that you can put this on, listen to it, watch it, whatever, when you're busy doing something, and it just kind of, I don't know, is company for while you're making or doing things. Hopefully it feels kind of like knitting or making stuff, working side by side with a friend. That is my goal. I have no plan. I have no notes. Usually I look at your last comments and I kind of write up some basic notes and, group comments together so that it flows, which probably sounds ridiculous given how awkward the episodes are. But I was not able to do that. However, I just wanted to put out an episode while I can because I have a few minutes to myself in the quiet. So much has been going on that if I'm going to talk to you about my projects before I have a giant stack again, I've just got to do it this way sometimes. So I'm just going to talk about some of the things you said. I'm just going to read your comments to you and answer. But first, let me tell you, it's the beginning of October, pretty much, right? Can you see what I'm wearing? Do you remember this from like 2 years ago? This is the lace sweater, and in quotes, Villanelle by Olga Grishina. I knew Grishina, I couldn't remember if her first name was Olga. I don't know how I came across this. I probably searched Villanelle or Killing Eve on Ravelry to see if there were any patterns because I personally, there was a sweater Villanelle wears that I wanted to make just for fun, and it would be totally novelty, fun, silly, and we're gonna have in 2023, I just spit all over the camera. 2023, we're gonna have a knit along. On the podcast, whoever wants to do it, and it's going to be really fun, like TV inspired knits from some character or something inspired. Because I have so many I want to do, and they're not even things I would maybe wear. They just look like fun to try and make. So anyway, I was looking at Villanelle stuff and I came across the sweater and I was like, ooh, that's not kooky fun. This is really a pretty sweater. And if I knit it in Barocco Remix Light, which I did, it's very wearable in Texas. Olga has a lot of really great patterns and she has a deal. I think if you buy 3 patterns, you get 1 free. Go check out her patterns, and I'm gonna have a link in the notes on YouTube and on my blog. I just link everything. If the links are super lengthy, it will all just be on my blog, and I'm just a link in full. So go to her Ravelry page and take a look at all of her designs. They're really trendy, very current, but there's also a lot of classic knits too, and a lot of more complicated lace, which I don't know if you can tell, but the Villanelle was a major labor of love for me. I'm not often feeling like being super focused on knitting. These days, when I knit, it is very stress relief in the dark while my husband watches some show or we watch something together, and I'm not as mindful. So I started this maybe 2 years ago. I forgot I had finished my sweater, basically. I had one sleeve attached and the other was knit up, and I simply needed to attach it. It's a drop shoulder design, so I don't actually think I followed her direction correctly for attaching it, but it's fine. I think I did it right side out and she had it inside out. I don't know the attachment, but it was easy. It was fine. I had no problems. And all I had to do was add this little bit of ribbing at the neck. It's perfect. It is a perfect, even winter sweater here for Texas. This is knit in Barocco's Remix Light. And so you see you've got kind of a little nubby halo. That's the cotton. But the feel of this little nubby texture has some grip to it like wool. And I feel like it's so much easier on my hands than normal cotton or linen would be. Like, it's got a little bit of grip, maybe even a little bit of stretch to it, and I don't ache after knitting. This lace, this was probably knit with size 3 needles, the whole thing. I'm a very loose knitter. And yeah, of course I have no details in my Ravelry. I knit the small size, but I think I could have gone up one and I would have been fine. This was made with built-in ease, but this could have a lot more and still fit well. So let me show you kind of this lace pattern a little more up close. I don't have a lot of space in here. I'm wedged in my living room, but you can see it's panel after panel of lace separated by little cabled sections, and I'm just loving the look of the reverse stockinette on the outside. I just love how it looks on the sleeves. Reverse stockinette, and then there's this little panel of cable, and then the panel of lace. The twist rib lace edging for the bottom of the sweater and the sleeve cuffs, I just think it's so nice, but there was so much patterning going on here. But it was all very clearly laid out. I never had a question about how to do it. I would definitely call this an advanced pattern though, just because it was rather long and a lot of lace. Actually, for me, it felt intermediate, but if you're a beginner, you might think, oh, advanced, but really she walks you through all of it. Plus she has links to videos. So some of the descriptions, I would have had trouble with how to do that little twist stitch, but not at all with the video. The video made it completely clear. And so I cannot recommend this enough. This is a very open neck, which I love. As long as it's not falling off of me, I'm great with open neck, and it's just airy with the lace. It's breathable. So I wore it today. It's October, but it's in the 90s. Actually, I'm probably sweating a little because I was digging yarn out of the yarn closet for this episode. But anyway, it looks kind of cool. And one of you had mentioned in the comments, I had said, what could I do in my next episode that would just gross everyone out and be super meme-tastic? Because I was kind of picking on trends with podcasting. And Sharon had said, this was her suggestion, that I should go coastal grandma with the whole episode. Film it, a making segment where I'm wearing the bucket hat, the flowing linen dress and pants, a natural chunky or nautical striped sweater, where I'm out in the garden working, not fertilizing or weeding, you know, what you actually do in the garden, but picking heirloom tomatoes or watering them, while like rainbows form in the mist of the water. Then I could transition into my cottage kitchen, where, that's one word for it, where I prepare the fruits of my garden harvest, making sure my sweater is the lightest color possible as I work with tomatoes. Then place the tomatoes on my farm-to-table meal and sit down to enjoy it, still wearing a white sweater, because that's what everyone does, you know, who's working in their garden or with food. That's really funny, Sharon, because I see lots of videos like that, and oh my gosh, Coastal Grandma's beyond funny now. I'm tired of it. But I was talking with my husband about, like, I was watching a video about decor styles, and I was like, you know, everyone talks about Coastal Grandma. I think my house looks Coastal Grandma, and probably it's because a lot of my stuff came from my grandma, and I lived by the coast for a long time. You know, there's shells everywhere and stuff like that. And he's like, you were Coastal Grandma before anyone thought it was cool. You're basically Coastal Great Grandma. So I think that that's going to be my new hashtag, Coastal Great Grandma. Anyway, this has that vibe for sure. Do you want to know why I finished this? I kind of forgot about it as I moved. I got here. I think I finished a sleeve here, and then, you know, life is crazy. So I told you I joined Laura and Allison party that, like, kind of like, it's like a network. I don't know the word for it. But But anyway, it's a paid membership. It's like $5 a month. And they do lots of knit-alongs and little classes, freebie classes. And then you can sign up for some of their classes they offer online. So they were doing sleeve timber all through September. And the goal was to finish like 100 sleeves. Like all the different people who are members are like you and me. If you're a knitter or a crocheter, you have something you started because it was super cool and colorful at the top, or an interesting stitch pattern. You get through the tube of the body, and by the time you get to the sleeves, you're kind of bored with it, or a new thing has caught your fancy. So we all have those languishing projects with one sleeve, half a sleeve, no sleeves. And the goal was to finish, I think, 100 sleeves, maybe. I might be underestimating, but whatever it was, we almost made the goal. And this was the one I actually finished by the end of September. So that is my thing to have finished for sleeve timber. Now what I'm gonna show you next episode, I also worked on during sleeve timber, but I didn't quite have it finished, and it is now finished. My ends are not completely woven in, and it's not fully blocked. But it's my guilloche sweater by Albina McLaughlin. The top is not blocked, but I had the body to here, and I had one sleeve knit, and I had another sleeve on the way, and I just felt really insecure. I had read Albina's instructions, and I trust her, but it had been a while since I started the sweater, and I don't always trust my varying mysterious tension. And this right here looked like this. It was so tiny looking because it hadn't been blocked out. And this is a very stretchy cable pattern. Just in case, I had a swatch. I had done my swatch. I did a big swatch, everything. But just in case, I went ahead and blocked the body before finishing that last sleeve. And oh, it blocked out beautifully. It's perfect. I did go back though and add an inch. I'll talk about this in the next episode. I just wanted to show that for sleeve timber, I actually got busy. I lengthened a sleeve, I knit a whole sleeve, attached, and did the neckline of the sweater. This was done in Knit Picks Wool of the Andes tweed and one of their green mossy colorways. So I'll talk about it later. Another thing I finished because of the same group, Laura and Allison Party, was they did Vest Fest. They did that through, I guess, July and August maybe. And I took part in Vest Fest. And of course I have that vest that I have not finished for you guys. It was a full sweater. I ripped it back and I showed that in an episode, and then I'll show it now. My cat's entire body, except for her little back footies, was sticking out of this bag seconds ago, so I don't know what I'm fixing to pull out. Remember, this was the sleeve of the sweater I'm going to make into a leg warmer, but we were just talking about using our scraps up. So I began the back of this vest. Here's the shoulders. Of course, this is the right side. And a very deep indentation for the armhole here. And I'm now at the base of the armhole, and I was just going to knit down the whole back. And I'm taking photos as I knit, and that is one reason this is stalled out, because I would only knit at night, and I didn't want my photos to be all different times a day because I'm weird like that. So this is in a little bit of Dirty Water Dye Works Clara and Wool of the Andes tweed Flagstone Heather. That is what I wanted to do for Vest Fest, but I just was only working on it at night. So I was like, no, I'll do that. I'll work an inch or two at a time during the day, take a photo, and within a few weeks it'll be done. So instead, I pulled out my Boxy V-Neck Vest by Katya Gorbacheva. If you remember, I did the Boxy V-Neck Vest, but I ignored some of the sleeve directions to make just a regular drop sleeve, and I knit a boucle long sleeve sweater because I had some boucle and I didn't know what else to do with it. was an affordable boucle, and I just wanted a big boxy sweater with a bit of a, you know, I don't know if that's supposed to look like prep school, sporty look. I don't know. Maybe I need to have it around my shoulders for the most sweaty, gross podcast episode in Texas. Like, my husband's fixing to walk in. I'm gonna see if he notices that I'm wearing this and it looks really weird. I actually have another sweater on my lap. I ought to put my legs through the sleeves and see if he notices. It just kind of walks by. Yeah, wondering about that. Anyway, so anyway, this is kind of the look I'm going for now in Texas. This is really in style. Oh, hey, what are you doing?
Back.
Do you think I look okay for this podcast episode?
You look very warm.
Why are you laughing?
Because you have 3 sweaters on.
I'm not wearing these.
And shorts. You have shorts on, so I guess that's equilibrium.
I just did that because you were walking in. So, actually, I'm taking this one off. Now I'm stripping. This is a totally different genre of podcast. I notice you're hanging out now. Okay, so, woo, this feels a lot lighter, even though it is wool. This is Ella Rae Eco Tweed. Isn't this great? Oh my gosh, I love the fit on this. Now I'm being serious. Okay. Here, whoops, there's a little belly. All right. Isn't this just the cutest with the little flecks? These are not super crazy bright, but they are enough to make a gray vest, a boxy gray vest. Really cute and interesting. And oh, I love this vest. The fit is excellent. So it's the same fit that I had here. Man, I could not put this on right now. I have to turn off my AC to film these because I still don't have a good mic and the AC blows so loud in this house. It's like a windstorm. So, same fit, just different yarn. Oh, kitty. Look at my kitty. See her little bed? This is Hazel. Just my sweet girl. All right, she just tried to bite me. She's not so sweet after all, is she? All right. Okay, I'm gonna take this from you too. Sorry. So I knit size 3, which is a 46.4 inch bust. And I used Ella Rae Eco Tweed in the Tumblewood colorway. So that's what this gray is, Tumblewood. And, okay, I'm gonna turn this a little. I love the fit of this. This is very basic and simple, but I think that the V-neck right here, the look of the V-neck is very neat, and I just think she hit the nail on the head with excess ease. Like, I could have gone even bigger and this would look very cool. But if you wanted to make this a little more fitted, I mean, it's still gonna have that drop sleeve look, but you could knit a smaller size if you want like a little more of a fitted, whatever. I don't ever like fitted. So, anyway, I did change up my cuff. I think I used less stitches. For some reason, my ribbing often will look loose and floppy on things. So usually when it tells me to pick up ribbing for a neckline or a cuff, I usually don't follow the directions. I reduce the number of stitches. That is even sometimes when, like say for these, I might have, I don't think I did on this one, but sometimes I will knit the armhole even bigger. I won't increase the number of stitches I pick up. I feel so good having this vest finished, having the Villanelle sweater and guilloche both off the needles. I felt so good and clean. Clean slate. The one thing, I keep holding this. I guess I'll talk about it in a minute. The one sweater I hoped to start working on to finish for sleeve timber was my Omnia, which is upstairs and I'm not gonna go get it. but it was a Martin Story pattern. It's got it's a 3-color knit with a bit of color blocking, and it's just kind of an intricate, it's not super intricate. It's kind of like, you know how if you haven't knit brioche in a while, you've got to go back and refresh on how to do it, but once you do it, you're like a robot, you know, doing it. Whatever that stitch was, it's that way. And it has kind of a textured look. And maybe sort of mistake rib-like, I don't know. I don't even remember what the stitch was, but I just kind of have dreaded going back and figuring out where I was in the pattern, how the stitch worked. So I didn't get to it, and I hoped that I would start it for sleeve timber and then I would be compelled to finish it. Because once you remember the hard part, you remember where you are, it's just a matter of, you know, putting in the time. But alas, I did not get there. So now it is October, and in that same group online, we've been talking about community a lot here and where you're experiencing community, and I talked about that in the last episode. A lot of people doing Facebook groups. Everyone misses Ravelry groups because we're not using them as much. I feel like this Laura and Allison party is very similar to a Ravelry group. And it makes me think a lot of previous Ravelry groups that I was a part of that Allison had something to do with. Anyway, she and Laura McDougall both have different sweater classes that they'll have. And I mean, at this point in my life, I feel like I could probably figure anything out on my own. But where I fall short is I'm kind of lazy about stuff, and I just like, nah, we'll see if it works. And I, like, for instance, blocking out the bottom of this to make sure it would work before I finished the sleeves and put it together. Allison's like, you really ought to block that first. And she was right. And it did fit. It was fine. It blocked out perfect. But I would not do that on my own. So sometimes having a little guidance is good. And, you know, I've gone to a retreat before. I've been to classes, and I enjoy them, even if it's something I could Google, find out on my own. But I think I joined 2 classes is my point. I'm going to do Andawa starting at the end of this month, and Illuminate by Andrea Mowry. So Andawa is Michelle Wang, I think. And yeah, Andrea Mowry did Illuminate. And I'm going to show you what I think my yarn choices will be for that. I'm not sure. I felt like, you know, I could do it on my own. With Andawa, I actually was thinking of a different sweater. I was thinking of Quadrillion, and I remember I had a friend online who modified the neckline, and I liked it better. And so I was thinking, oh, Andawa, I want to modify that neckline. I really should join a class, and now have someone to help me through it, because that's kind of what Allison does. Is she has a lot of charts, a lot of she helps you basically modify and make anything out of the original pattern. She really helps you if you want to veer far off the beaten path or stick with it. So for somebody who's not a beginner, there's still value to doing it as a class. Someone who's intermediate or more advanced in their skills still might be a very beginner in maturity, or lack the confidence to make lots of yarn substitutions. So that is one of the benefits of taking these classes. And then for me, it's kind of fun. The momentum, obviously, because I'm doing a podcast of sharing things with others and doing things together. So I joined Andawa, and then I realized, it was Quadrillion that I wanted to modify the neckline of. But Andawa was in my queue, my Ravelry queue, for a while now. So I know I wanted to do it, and I'd need to go ahead. And I had some yarn for it, and I had 2 choices. I had a blue Sky Fibers wool stock, and it was a blue, kind of a denim blue color, or this Cascade 220 and Turtle. And Turtle was all the rage, I feel like, for a while. I just love this color. I would see it everywhere, and then it kind of fell out of favor, maybe, or just, you know, other things get popular. But this is a heathered color, and oh man, that's very true to the color right there. It's really pretty. So like I ask my husband, you know, like, what do you think's better, this or this? And sometimes I'll just get on Canva and I'll make all these like mosaic photos, collages of different yarn combos together. And I mean, I was almost like I was testing him to see how much patience he would have with this. Not quite, I was really looking at it for my own benefit, especially for Illuminate. But when I showed him the wool stock and this, he was like, green. And I was like, really? He goes, yes, green. I was like, okay. He never has an opinion, so I think I'm gonna listen to it. However, I realized I have like a ton of green lately. So much green, but whatever. And more green. I like the color green, so it works. So that's what I think I'm going to do for my Ondawa. And I don't think I'm going to make any modifications on the pattern, but I am intrigued by how we're gonna do it without swatching or without traditional swatches. That's going to be fun because that is a major cable vest. The other thing I was going to do with that group was Illuminate by Andrea Mowry. You've seen it. But in case you haven't, or in case you're like me and they're all the Andrea Mowry sweaters are kind of like jumbling in your head, unless you happen to knit them. This is a combination where she used like a Surrey alpaca, or you could use like a lace weight mohair, something fuzzy for one color. I think that's for like the contrast color maybe, and the main color is something that's a very subtle like color changing yarn from, you know, Spin Cycle. It's like a dyed in the wool, but I'm gonna hold up the picture, but you really can't see the color changing. I think she's using a Spin Cycle here. I really can't see the dark color is slowly ombre or changing. But what I did see on other people was that it did. And I'm not going to show you other people's photos. I don't think I have the, oh, okay, this is on her site. So clearly you can show this one. This is on the main page. Do you see how the lighter yellow, it looks like a yellow or a cream color, that is the fuzzy yarn. And everything after that is, I mean, everything behind it, the main color, is a color self-striping or ombre gradient type effect. Not sure what yarn she used, but a lot of the Spin Cycle yarns do that. They have like about 1 or 2 stripes in them before the color changes to a different one. Okay, so I'm trying to use stash, right? So, you know, this 2017, 2016, this is old stash, maybe even sooner. I might have even gotten it before that. For Illuminate, I'm trying to use stash also, and here's my options. For the fuzzy yarn, I might make some. I have old, one of my first purchases from the old Hill Country Weavers way back when, in its first location or second location. This is some Rowan Kid Silk Haze in like a pearl color. Or I have this from, I am not sure who this is by. Sun Soaked Yarns, mohair lace, and I think it was a coffee type colorway. So it's a very light, kind of gray brown. Do you see the gray to it? This looks kind of, in the shadow it looks very brown, but it's light. So you see I have one of these I'm thinking of using for my main color, and depending on which one I use, here is the collection of, I'm going to try and make my own gradient with yarns that I have. I have some Knit Picks Hawthorne, which I plan to use, Silverton, Rockaway, and Grants Pass. And those 3 colors kind of make a gradient. Silverton and Rockaway really look like light and dark versions of each other. They're almost a plum kind of gray. brown. I use them for Pippin. And then Grant's Pass, I believe, is extra dark. So I thought I would do that, but you guys, I have all my yarn stuffed in a closet, but I mean, it's stuffed. I went dig into the back and I just got like, I was exhausted. I was like, I'm not gonna bother with this because I found some stash that would work just fine for that. They could go in different combinations. I was thinking of just using 3 colors, like a 3-color gradient, but I have these from a dyer who was local to me when I lived near the Beaumont area, Hughes, and her shop is a different name now, and I don't know what the new name is, but this was like, Chocolate was the name of this skein of fingering yarn, and it's just a variegated, almost a pinkish taupe and coffee color. Really pretty. So there's a bit of a pink to it. This also has dark plum colors. Oh my God, there's so much hair on this. And to navy. And so this actually makes a pretty neat transition if there was something in between. Well, I found this also in older stash by the Wicked Knitta. And these two are a gradient set together. These are very similar to the Hawthorne colors I was talking about. This looks a lot like the Silverton, but they are, it's a truffle colorway. Truffle. So this is like a colorway set called Truffle, and this is a really beautiful, beautiful rich brown. Now these to me are a little more special. I love knit picks, but these are a little more special. And so here I have the ability to make a combination out of all 4 or just 3. Wasn't quite sure what I want to do here. I could use your input. Should I do all 4 like this as my background main color in this sweater, or just 3? And whether I do all 4 or 3, I'm gonna hold them like this. Which of these would make a better main color? I'm not crazy into high contrast. This would be very high contrast. This, I feel like, will still contrast with each of these lighter colors because it has so much of a kind of a just a dusty brown. I mean, it's pretty close to this. And it will definitely contrast with these. And I'm really excited about them. I may just drop this one because I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I just think this is a really pretty combo. And I'm just not sick of it yet. What do you guys think? All stash. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased to be all stashing it. So I'm thinking the Capistrano knits, and I have enough. Takes about 2 skeins. So that's what I'm looking at for Illuminate and Andalwa, and those will be happening at the end, starting at the end of the month. I don't think we're going to finish Andalwa in the class, and it will probably take me a while, but I was kind of excited to have a plan for these, and then I'll find something for this eventually. So speaking of stash, Andrea Mowry released her big cozy sweater. It's like a big cocoon sweater. And you know, I don't know that it's that different from a lot of cocoon sweaters, except many that I see have kind of a more of a airy, chunky knits with a little more of a lace look or airy fabric to it. And she has that really big shawl collar. It's a very, it's knit in something lace weight, but it just bunches like around your neck. And it's very cozy. It's a neat detail, and it made me want to knit it with stash. So what I thought I would do, I have some of this Malabrigo, it's a Scorius in Arroyo. So I have a few skeins of this from, I think it was a sale a while back on a website, maybe This actually is a little darker than it. There we go. And what I thought I would pair it with it, I did buy this on a web sale. Silk Hair Haze from Lana Grossa. I thought that would make a nice combination. So this will be that big shawl collar that's knit in a different weight yarn. And look at that, my big dog's here. You never see my big dog. And I thought it would look pretty, the gray with this, and it brings out the gray in this yarn. Now, this is Malabrigo, and it could be just, these all really do look like a similar dye lot, but this could be so varying that I don't know how it would look. Depending on how the cocoon sweat, there might be a lot of pooling, but I'll just vary my skeins and try. I knit a sweater in Arroyo once, and I was really disappointed with the pooling. Even alternating skeins, it was just weird how I could not avoid pooling. I don't know. I might regret it. Wow, though, man, I love these colors. As I get close to the camera, it looks really bright. It's a pretty dark knit. So the sweater itself will be kind of dark, and then you'll have a slightly lighter gray collar. Hers is a darker color than the sweater. That's what I would have in the lighter gray, and my sweater would be that darker Escorias colorway. We have a butterfly migration happening in town right now, and any day I look out and there's like hundreds in my backyard. They're tiny little yellow ones right now, but the last week or two it's been the snout-nosed butterfly, and it looks almost like a moth. It's got this little pointy snout on it, and it's just kind of neat to look out my front door and just see, like, every 2 minutes, like 100 floating by. It's like my street is on the route, and I've never noticed that anywhere I lived before. It just makes my new home feel more special. And my dogs are out there in the grass with the butterflies all around them. It's just very picturesque. So that's all my latest inspiration. And I probably won't make the big cozy cardigan anytime soon. Who knows, I might. Since the yarn is out of the closet, it's downstairs, I might actually do it. But I do tend to do things well after everyone else. And when you were commenting on last week's episode, or last week, last month's episode, Lori was mentioning kind of wanting to do a podcast. She has lots of knitting thoughts, knitting questions, but then feels like she kind of burns her friends out on all the questions she asks and things. And, a podcast might be a good place for all of that energy, that crafting, chatty energy. But she's like, I don't know, I don't make the newest things. I don't make trendy or interesting things. I just don't know that anyone would watch it. If I do that big cozy right now, that would be kind of trendy, but that's typically not what I do. And I don't know, I mean, it depends, Lori. If you're wanting a big following, don't listen to me, because I don't have that. I don't know how to do that, but I do think there's a place for just people making what interests them. And sometimes even just a boxy, simple vest, I mean, that's what a lot of people actually need in their wardrobe. They're interested in how you did it, or the yarn you use, or your thoughts while you make it. I'm interested in those kinds of things. So there is a, podcast typically are, podcasters are racing to be the first to knit up this or that. And chunky weight projects are really popular because you can have one out every 2 weeks, I wouldn't worry about that. I wouldn't worry about how of the moment what you're making is, because everybody's doing that. And I think people are looking for substance, like a personality. Like I said, just somebody to listen to while they knit. So anyhow, I think you should try it. And like I had suggested the week before to somebody, just make your episodes private on YouTube and watch a few, and if you still feel weird about it, keep them private and just do it for you. You might enjoy it like 10 years from now, looking back and getting a kick out of the stuff you made. Another one of you said something about how you're kind of tired of podcasting culture. Like, it was like the segments, you know? Adina said she missed the days, the olden days of when it was a little less commercialized. She said everybody's promoting themselves like it's very commercialized, and I really just want to listen to a real person sharing their joy of knitting as well as their flops. So there you go, Lori. Do you have any flops? This is what I love watching. I love watching. I like watching someone learn and get it right. I like watching them get it wrong too. She said, I'm tired of listening to the same welcome speech and going through the same series of topics, whips, finished objects, this, that. Well, I do some of that, but I get what you mean, Adina, that it's very regimented. Everyone's following this prescribed format that they got from some of the first video podcasters in the knitting world who were just getting it from all the other podcasters on YouTube. It's kind of silly that we still stick with the format. And I notice just trends and like thumbnails. Like, okay, my thumbnail for that last Socks in a Rant, maybe it wasn't my thumbnail, it was the outro thumbnails, the ones that didn't make it. And it's like me superimposed in front of a wall of socks. Like, that's the trend right now. You have your photo of the thing you've made, and then you have it as the background, and you have yourself like cut and paste on top of it. But I literally laid the socks on the floor and I laid my head on them because it's just what I do. And my husband stood over me and took pictures. It was so silly. Yeah, it was my low-tech version of that. Even though I could do that in Photoshop, but I just don't want to. I thought that was funny. Anyway, I get what you're saying though. Everything feels a little canned and stale, and there's nothing new, like Katie said, but what can be fresh and new is your personality as you discuss it. So I suggest that, Lori, that you try it. Sighthounds Galore said, I love blogs and plan to slowly check out the ones you've listed. That was like 100, 200 blogs. That's so funny. Good for you. I actually got lost looking into all of them and seeing which ones were still around. I wasted so much time. That's why I don't have show notes. Thanks again for a restful, educational, and lovely podcast. I plan to try out a new heel in my next pair of socks. Oh, I'm so glad. That's something new. Somebody's trying. Cool. I am slowly on my blog releasing posts about all the details of them. I've done like 4 or 5 pair already. So, and then in a few episodes, I'm going to talk about my perfect sock recipe. And I'll have a blog post on that too. Vivi said that she's a fairly new knitter and thought she was alone in feeling the isolation when scrolling knitting Instagram. It seems like the only way to get support as a knitter is if you push out and sell a product or collaborate with someone's business. I do love my Facebook knitting group though. People there are so eager to join conversations and offer advice and support. I'm so glad you found that group, Vivi. That's a lot how the Ravelry groups used to be, and maybe still are, some of them. That's something I found in the Laura and Allison party. It's very similar to that group mentality, and a lot of people have mentioned in the last episode, I talked about it, that their Facebook group was like their knitting lifeline. As far as obnoxious things that I could do, you know, I said I wanted to do a meme-tastic episode. I'm kind of too lazy really to do that, but Pam was saying it drives her crazy to hear someone knit this big knitting project they've completed and it's beautifully done, and they say, oh, it just flew off the needles. It practically knit itself. And it makes her so jealous, you know, because it's taking her forever to, you know, plod through her projects. I get that. That's frustrating too. And she has been inspired to try something new with crochet. So I asked you guys, what are you trying that's new? Lori was considering Tony Lipsy's Crochet Academy. which I said I was going to do, and I am getting the blog posts and I'm reading them, but I haven't started actually crocheting because I've tried some new creative things. They're just online. It's with photo editing and writing, and I just haven't done much as far as crochet or knitting. The Island Lamb Knits. Just heard about this podcast from the Republic of Me, which is a really good podcast. I'm not sure if she's been doing recent episodes. COVID just really slowed everyone down, but she's really beautifully films hers. That's Ivana. Anyway, the Island Lamb Knit said, I'm glad this episode was the first that I've seen. I just started my own YouTube channel. I started watching podcasts during COVID. My first was Fruity Knitting. I've been a maker for over 30 years. I only just decided to give it a try. I wanted to talk about my projects, my love of knitting, and my life living on a small island. I never listened to blogs or watched blogs, but I was definitely a Vogue Knitting magazine lover. Okay, that's interesting. So the Island Lamb Knits, a maker for 30 plus years, and has started her own podcast, Lori. You gotta do it, Lori. Oh, and here's the seamstress at the cottage said, boomerang and the sound 5 hours later, like 5 hours later. Oh yeah, yeah, that's everywhere. But me and my kids have been saying it for a long time. Okay. Ophelia Bells said, I've never used Instagram, so never found inspiration there. Always through Ravelry and then finding podcasts on YouTube, even though I did first teach myself to crochet using YouTube. It wasn't until a few years ago I found out about crochet podcasts and then knitting podcasts and found them more enjoyable, even though I didn't knit. I really wanted to, though. So that's funny. You weren't even a knitter, but you enjoy listening to knitting podcasts. So Ravelry's an addiction, and Pinterest is also great for inspiration and organizing ideas. I did and do have a blog, but I abandoned it, though I do think about it. I'll never do a podcast, but I do enjoy them so much. Karen is on Instagram less than 30 minutes a week. Same with Ravelry, unless it's an intentional search. Time is her most precious resource, so I try to spend and invest it well. My biggest source of inspiration is podcasts. I get to sit and knit, and podcasts still fill me with joy. I have no meme ideas, as I've missed most of the top knot Daisy Two Cats kind of thing. Well, I think you're going to be okay. While watching, I'll scribble, usually on a pattern, some notes, or stop and pull up Ravelry. It is 95% of my inspiration, as I get to see things on real people. That's true. You listen to my plum sweater info before making it. Yeah. And plum is kind of, it's a risk because, I don't know, it may have been edited with multiple sizes, but it was just one size. It's like a one size fits all. That's a lot of work for something that's just going to be an awkward fit. And yes, that's one where I looked at so many Ravelry pictures and Instagram photos, Karen. I did not want to screw up on that sweater. Plus, I was using that Mueke yarn, and it was so important to me, you know, this nice purchase, and I didn't want to, like, be ripping back, you know. So anyway, yeah. So Karen, you get to the point with it. You know what you're looking for when you get on Ravelry. You don't wander. As far as new things people wanted to try, I mentioned a few people's. Lori wants to do that Crochet Academy, and Pam is also interested in crochet. Jen started her first cabled sweater, which I can't believe you've never knit a big cabled sweater before, Jen. Jen knits like a sweater a month at least. A lot of color work though. So. I guess you haven't done cables, so that's exciting for you. I need to go check. I may have even seen your progress on Instagram and I'm not remembering. Katie had said that you're trying several new things. Well, first of all, during my mega long last episode, she finished her granny square like sunflower cardigan, and I'm gonna have a link in the show notes to her cardigan because it's like these granny square cardigans you're seeing, but it looks like little sunflowers. And it's my favorite granny square project so far. Katie has gotten into the idea of Bargello embroidery, which I don't know anything about that. I remember Bargello knits came out maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago or something. And I never read it, but I saw the book in different bookstores and, you know, online. So I'm wondering how the embroidery works. Bargello knits look kind of, had a patchworky feel to it to me. So I'm wondering if the embroidery is similar. And the other thing she's thinking about is whittling, which sounds like fun. That sounds super summer camp. Have you done it, Katie? Have you whittled anything? Like, what kind of things are you thinking of doing? And is there like certain tools and woods that you have to use or that beginners should use? My son has a million knives. That would be kind of fun to do. It does sound like something you would do with your kids on a camping trip, or I would do with my kids when they were little on a camping trip, because usually my son would want to get a souvenir knife somewhere where he goes all into like knives. He had like butterfly knife. You remember those? Oh man, I hated that. Oh, I hated those. Very scary to me, but you know, it was a thing to learn some tricks with them. Anyway, that's enough of me sounding like a bad mom. If I ignored somebody's comments, I'm really sorry. Pam mentioned Anne with an E, because I had talked about my Anne of Green Gables socks, and Virginia just finished reading all 3 of the first Anne of Green Gables books, as I had, and I mentioned that in the last episode. That's really weird that we both did it at the same time. I finished my Anne of Green Gables socks, and I talked about them in the last episode, but I'll just show you my progress on same designer, not an Anne of Green Gables sock, but this is Sweet Woodruff. And I don't even have my sock blockers. I didn't really plan to show these. This is in Miss Mothball's yarn. It was that Blooming Sage colorway. This is a really pretty rolled cuff sock. This would be really cute in clogs, like in the winter, I think. Let's see if I can show you that stitch pattern better. So these were a lot of fun. My next, I don't know, I'm thinking 52 weeks of socks, but I also am just on a real Olivia Villarreal sock kick. She's got another Anne of Green Gables themed sock, and it was called, I told you about it, Kindred Spirits. Let's see if I've got that yarn. Yeah. I thought this would be a good yarn for it. This is John Arbin, but I also have my leftover yarn. So you saw that the Jack and Sally striped socks, I showed them in the last episode, and there's a blog post now with all the details on both pair. The first pair had contrasting heels, toes, cuffs with this Peter Pan colorway from Skeins and the Snacks. Skeins in the Stacks, not the snacks. I'm hungry, can you tell? Look how beautiful this color is. It's such a great grello kind of color. I don't think I have enough for Sweet Woodruff because it has a cuff. But I'd really like to knit, I mean, not Sweet Woodruff, Kindred Spirits. I would really like to make it in this, but this is actually a little more yarn, and I think I should probably play it safe. Another post that just went up on my blog is about the Holly Jolly socks, which I told you about in the last episode. And I kind of just got on a kick of wanting to knit those plumper sock yarns. I got this, it was knit in plump merino by a homespun house, and it made a really woolly, just a nice fabric. I have a little left from that I can make shorties with, or some striping, and I thought it would make kind of a cute stripe with a natural colored yarn, maybe even make another Christmas sock. But this is something I got on Ravelry D-Stash. I don't know if you guys do D-Stash much on Ravelry, but if there's indie dyers you're really interested in, or discontinued yarns, like say that Jinx Strong Sport, going back in D-Stash, you know, checking, doing a search on the yarn, and then looking in stashes, and then ticking off will sell trade D-Stash. That's all the people who said they will sell their yarn, and they often tell you what the price would be plus shipping or including shipping. I got this that way. This is a Harry Potter colorway from a homespun house. It's Return to Hogwarts 2018. I'm not a super Harry Potter fan. I've watched the shows with my son one Christmas we watched all of them all at once. But usually at Christmas time, they would come on, and maybe we will again this year, and I'll work on. I've got some Jinx D-stash I got from someone, and it's the House Cup colorways, or it's a striping colorway of House Cup colors. And then this is Return to Hogwarts. So this has the contrasting heels and toes, or cuff and heel. And not sure how this is going to work up. I'm thinking it might be almost kind of a micro stripe too, based on ones I saw on Ravelry. But it's that plump merino. And I wouldn't, you know, it's just a good way to get an indie dyed yarn if you don't feel like you can afford to pay full price right now for it. Also, if it's a discontinued yarn line, that's kind of the way to go. Okay, one more knit along thing I'm doing. I decided I want to join Alexandra Tavel, Two of Wands, her League series knit along. So you know she has the Autumn League pullover, Winter League pullover, and there's one other. It's like a summer cutoff. I wouldn't ever wear a sweater in summer like that, ever, here. But I thought this would be a good, this is her sleeveless hoodie. So it's called the Spring League pullover. I thought this would be a good transitional piece. And I had leftover Color Theory yarn, which is one of her yarn lines through Lion Brand. I had leftover from that baby blanket that I made, that I did not ever show you, and then I gave it away. It's Caper is the colorway, and I got like 2 more skeins to go with what I had, so I did add. It's not completely stashed, but I'm doing this as a great experiment, and I blogged on this yesterday. It's 100% acrylic. It's very soft feeling. I don't know how it will pill. It's not going to keep me super warm in the winter, but this is a sleeveless hoodie, so it's a little more about the look than it is warmth, or it might be the kind of thing you throw on over your t-shirt in the movie theater. I'm just not sure. So it's a good test for me to see, could I wear a full acrylic yarn in the winter or autumn? Would it be, I just think of sweat when I think of acrylic. Or not warm. You know, her Hue and Me line has, it's a blend of wool. It's only maybe 40% wool. So, or maybe just 20% wool. But I did find it nice and warm in the winter, but it's a bulky weight yarn. So this is kind of an experiment for me with this yarn. I really like, this is the back work from the top down. This is an odd shaping choice. This is the back of the neck. And then it's going to work down like this. I think that the sleeves kind of, it's not a traditional raglan look. I think the seaming for the sleeve is a little behind the shoulder instead of on top, and it's not raglan because it's sleeveless. Yeah, I don't know. Now, the site is full of ads. It's like full of ads. It's free though. It's a free pattern. You just have to deal with all those ads, and it constantly is reloading the page. So it might be worth paying her $4 or something for the pattern, because she doesn't charge too much for her patterns. And there's tons of people doing them. You can see how they look on Instagram or on Ravelry. I think she's really pretty good about making approachable knits with yarns anyone can use and find and afford, and patterns that you can pretty much afford. So it's the spring, it's the League Series Cal is the hashtag for it. I do have cotton yarn for her Autumn League, but I just don't feel like digging it up out of the yarn closet. Like, this was handy from the leftovers from the blanket, and I will be lucky if I get this done before I start those 2 sweater classes. So what's been going on in my life, I've been doing a little more like writing. I've been writing on for my blog, and then for another, and just about to start trying to do some content writing, and it's been interesting. I'm learning about it, and I'm learning to use lots of new things. Photoshop in different ways, and I just got a new lens to use for photographing homes, and there's just been a lot of new like learning curve on stuff. Everything, just anything I go to do, I'm learning to use different like open source, or Grammarly isn't hard to learn, but you know, loading that up and using it, practicing like modern blog writing techniques for writing for someone else. Like the way I write for my blog is really just for me. It's interesting. I kind of did some of this blog headings and asking a question stuff on my own naturally years ago. Maybe I was being influenced by what I saw, but also it's just kind of natural when you're wanting to engage with people. But I really wanted to engage with people. Writing blog content for engagement or for constantly being in someone's inbox, I don't know. I don't know how I like that, but it's not for me. It's not like it's my baby. So I hope you guys have a really good week or two, depending on when I get back to you. Thank you so much for your comments, and let me know what kind of knit-alongs are you interested in doing. Maybe at the end of the year, but most likely at the beginning of the year. I told you my ideas, like TV knits or famous knits, recreating them or finding where someone wrote a pattern to recreate it. So I showed one a few episodes ago from that movie, Don't Look Up, that I want to do. I really like those colors together, and I had like some stash, and I mixed it with some cheap Lion brand on sale, and was gonna make that happen. But there's some I just want to actually make up. I could literally make that a 3-month thing and just work. I have so many. I need to just do an episode where I show you all my famous knits I want to make. Then there's novelty yarn. I would like to use some novelty yarn and just have like a novel knit along. Does that sound fun to you guys? I think I would like to do that. I might do that in December, but probably it'll be the beginning of the year. And another one would be just older patterns. It has to be an older pattern. It can't be super new. It has to be something you've wanted to make for a long time, but you never did. Those are my ideas. I probably could think of some more, but I would like to hear knit-along ideas for you guys, because I do want to do some knit-alongs with you in the coming year. And they'll be super informal, completely informal. And there'll be a prize or something, but it's more about just encouraging one another and inspiring one another. So I hope you guys have a really good week. Bye.